Houston Cougars, a furious comeback to knock off Duke and advance to the national championship game.
Here is Zion Chris, big hole, open sesame. Zion Chris, wow, the 72-yard house call.
Stick it in your pipe and smoke it, baby. Yes!
Welcome to the Scott Home Podcast. Back here off of what we'll call not the best Cougar football game. I'll probably say this at least a couple different times this episode, but I would say no small blessing that we've gotten to November 4th on this feed, and this is the first time we're going to be talking about a surprising and disappointing football result. And also that this team is good enough, or shown themselves at times to be good enough, to have actually been good enough to have a surprising bad result. Because, I don't know, other than losing to Rice 2 years ago, it's more just been this is a bad team that's mostly lost to teams for most of its recent history. So, gonna dig into that. Gonna talk about, the few days removed now, what we think is a real takeaway and what we think was just, I think, a bad day at the office. For Cougar football preview, a big Friday road game with the team looking to bounce back in Orlando against a familiar Florida face. Got plenty of basketball to talk about as well. One team ending their season, Cougar soccer. We're going to find a little time to talk about them as well. Bobby, as usual, it's the time of the year where we're getting to the very beginning of hoop season, the middle ending part of the fall sports season. A lot of Cougar stuff happening. How are we doing, friend? How are we feeling about all this?
Good, man. It's one of the more exciting times of the year. You can kind of equate this with another exciting time of the year is when March Madness is going on, and baseball and softball are in full swing, and you get swim and dive and track in there as well. It's a lot of Cougar sports. It's really exciting and it's really fun. So yeah, let's just dive in and talk some Cougar sports.
Yeah, quick mention here at the top, patreon.com/SH podcast. You want to get our live reaction to football games, weekly basketball premium episodes in addition to these as well. Just supporting the work that Bobby and I do, of course. If you like any of that and don't already do so, you can go to patreon.com, patreon.com/SH podcast. Gotta, of course, rip off the Band-Aid and talk about a 45-35 loss Saturday early afternoon to the West Virginia Mountaineers. Like I said at the very top of this episode, we can be somewhat glad that we've made it to early November before we had to come on here and talk about a baffling, frustrating Cougar football loss. And again, shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this team showed enough through its first 8 games that it was even highly regarded enough to have a disappointing loss to a Big 12 opponent. Believe me, that fact alone isn't going to take all the sting out from watching, and as you and I have had to do, rewatch at least in part, this specific loss. And there have been so many times in the last 7 or 8 years that we've come on here, whether it's been the two of us or me and Dustin or the two of us and Dustin, talking about a bad loss by a bad U of H team. And I don't know if I feel that much better about Saturday's loss as compared to when we came on minutes after to do our React episode. But I think with a few days removed, I have still at least come back to my broader belief that this is still a Cougar football team worth being excited about. That doesn't really change my feelings on Saturday's game itself, but I think just a reminder to the two of us and all Cougar fans listening not to get too swept up in the high of 2 weeks ago where you beat a top 25 team in their house, and then the low of going out as a top 25 team and getting pretty thoroughly outplayed by a previously winless in the Big 12 opponent. I've become less of a stats guy now than I was 5 or 6 years ago, but I still find the attempt to look at what football stats correlate most with winning football games beyond the most obvious stat to be very interesting, because it's a little bit less established than baseball, certainly, and I think basketball a bit behind baseball. And one of the things that fascinates me, Bobby, is that penalties are one of those stats that you would think correlates with winning, right?
Yeah.
It does not. This isn't to say it isn't good practice to still minimize penalties. Indiana, I think, is Exhibit A of an elite team who I think is helped by a low penalty yardage average. But Penn State and Wisconsin are also top 10 in Division I FBS currently in fewest penalty yards per game, and nobody would confuse those two teams with programs having a good season. You also have teams like A&M, Vandy, and Louisville who are all good to great, who are bottom 25 nationally in penalty yards per game, which leads to this game where West Virginia had 70 more penalty yards and 6 more penalties committed, yet it didn't really affect the outcome here. I think the real telling stat from this one, and the real telling stat to the broader thing I mentioned a bit ago, the what stats correlate to teams winning football games most often and most consistently, it's turnovers. Cougs committed 4 turnovers, and you could easily trace those turnovers to 14 West Virginia points. You had the third quarter pick 6, and West Virginia getting a really short field off of a Wigman fumble in the early second quarter. Of course, the last turnover on the punt where the ball bounced off a U of H player that well and truly put this game on ice for West Virginia. You can go through probably many seasons of college football data and not find very many teams who have been -4 in the turnover margin and have actually ended up winning the football game where they were -4 in turnover margin. Willie Fritz said it in his post-game remarks, paraphrasing a little bit, but Vince Lombardi's Green Bay Packers, Bobby, would have struggled to win while being -4 in turnovers. Feel like I've talked a bit more than usual here, so I'll pass it off to you. Give me your big picture thoughts on Saturday's game, and whenever you are ready, give us your overall play of the game from Saturday.
Yeah, man. I mean, my first line in my notes is, oh man, the biggest thought I had after this game was turnovers. Fritz speaks a lot about the turnover battle and how important that is. When you give it up 4 times, you very rarely win that game. Like it, it's a situation where you're giving the other team 4 extra drives, and maybe not extra, maybe they would have got a stop on you there, but you're giving them short fields. A lot of times you're making mistakes like that. So it's just a situation where you're very rarely going to win a game. Sometimes you see turnovers and it's like 3-2, but one of them was on a Hail Mary attempt before halftime or like at the end of the game. This certainly was not that. Those were 4 nasty turnovers. And to be honest, it probably should have been 1 or 2 more with the fumbles from Wigman where he kind of let the ball go. That was a weird thing that was kind of happening this
Just
game.
couldn't grip the ball or something.
Couldn't grip the ball. I don't know. I'll talk. I was going to talk a little bit more about it in my offensive thoughts, but one of the big things you hear quarterbacks and offensive players talk about, not just Wigman and not just this team, but just in general in football, is how much prep goes into prepping a new football, and how much they're rubbed down and they get hit with brushes and that kind of stuff. I do just kind of wonder if any of that kind of changed or any of that. I don't know what happened there. It was just kind of a weird thing to notice. And then I said this on the premium episode, but if you're gonna pull off an upset, there's 2 things you got to do. You got to run the ball, and West Virginia did that pretty well to the tune of 246 yards. And the second part is you got to get turnovers. You win the turnover battle by 1 or 2. You got a shot at winning that game, no matter who you're playing, right? No matter if you can run the ball effectively and you can force turnovers, you're going to be able to pull an upset pretty easily there. So that was just my kind of general thoughts. Not the best game from the defense. We obviously talk our defensive thoughts here in a minute, but just an all around stinker of a game. If you kind of box score this one, it may not look as bad as it actually was. I think the margin of victory kind of flatters us as well, as much as I don't like to say that. You did have a couple of moments, the punt at the end. That's just kind of a special teams problem there, right? You got to make sure that you're clearing the field when you hear whatever the code word is. You got to clear the field. To get blocked into a punt like that is just unexcusable, and it's unexcusable for the return man to not make sure everyone's getting away from the ball. I don't know what happened there, but there's got to be. It's clearly a breakdown in communication somewhere. So that was kind of my general thoughts. Was you just had bad plays on all 3 facets of the ball. You had offense, defense, and special teams, and that's going to hurt you every single time. So just kind of transitioning into my overlooked play, I really had it down to 2 plays, but to be honest, one of the plays was a penalty, and I kind of feel like I've leaned on penalties a bit too much this season, even though, like you said, penalties don't always correlate to winning, but one thing penalties do is when they come at key moments, it's a classic moment of gun to foot pull trigger, right? Shooting yourself in the foot there. So, I decided to go with a non-penalty play, like I said, to kind of set the scene. It's the third quarter, the first drive. You came out, you threw an interception. The defense does hold them to 3 on a short field, so you're only down 3 at this point. You get the ball back. You start the drive with a big run and a big pass. You pick up about 40 yards there. 2nd and 11, you lost 1 on first down. 2nd and 11, with how you've moved the ball this drive, you got an opportunity for a first down here, but it's also coming from the West Virginia 36. So you're down 3 early in the third. If you can pick up maybe 5 or 6 more on the 2nd and 11, maybe you pick up 3 here, another 3. You're in a shot where Ethan Sanchez can at least get a shot at it to tie this game up. Instead, Merriman gets absolutely schooled. Wigman fumbles. Cougs recover, but it's a 9-yard loss, setting you up for a 3rd and 20 from the 45. You're not kicking the field goal from there. Pass falls incomplete. You punt it. Now, the defense does get the stop after this, but if you go down and you can tie the game up there with the momentum that you had, if Merriman doesn't get absolutely destroyed on that play and then have to recover the fumble, that was kind of something that I always have kind of noticed, but this play really cemented it for me. Is you will sometimes see a guy who will an offensive lineman recovering the ball. He's usually the one that got beat because he's by the quarterback.
Yeah, I noticed that in the box score. It's one of those, like, you'll have like a random lineman who shows up in the rushing stats. And obviously he didn't rush, but because he was part of that, like, he shows up there. And I think that's a good pick too, because it's really kind of emblematic of the afternoon the Cougs had here. Like, you always kind of felt like you were playing from behind, and it's kind of a theme for my overlooked play as well. Mine came from the Cougar possession at the very beginning of the second quarter. Cougs were down 14-7 at that point, but this was right after the Cougar defense got West Virginia off the field for the first time this game. Kind of felt in real time like momentum was going back to the Cougars a bit in this game. And the play I picked here was the 2nd and 8 to go. It was a run for no gain by DJ Butler after Butler had gotten a couple on the play before, which put the Cougs in 3rd and long. And unfortunately, any Cougar fan will remember the not overlooked play immediately after this one, where Connor Wigman drops pretty far back, then just drops the ball, which West Virginia's defense recovers, and then 2 plays later, their offense converts that into a touchdown to go back up 2 touchdowns after having that early 14-0 lead. That whole aborted 3-play drive kind of felt like the Cougs' day at times in a nutshell. And I say that because it just felt on Saturday like you were constantly fighting from behind, but I picked this specific play for no gain by DJ Butler, not to pick on DJ Butler, who had a fine, like, 5 carries for 25 yards kind of day, spelling Dean Connors, but to illustrate the way this Cougar offense was quite often behind the sticks, or, in 3rd and long situations like the one you described at a different point in the game, and how I feel like they're constantly playing from behind the sticks, not really being comfortable ever consistently going to the run game, even though it had its moments. I think that all at least played a part in one of the worst performances, giving the ball away. The fact that you were also behind the sticks fairly often this one. And yeah, just one of your worst performances giving the ball away that we've seen from this program in the last few seasons. And I believe this represents the criteria of overlooked play pretty well, because nobody's thinking about a 2nd and long run for no gain from the early second quarter. But I mean, let's just say, Bobby, there was a decent hole in front of Butler. He gets first down yardage, or at least gets to 3rd and short. Maybe nothing changes. Maybe Wigman is careless with the ball, bobbles the snap or something like that, either on the next play or later in the series, whatever problems he was having, they just reared the head at a different time than when it actually happened. But even though the Cougs would eventually tie this one at 21 and have opportunities to stay in this game, it felt like West Virginia getting that 2 touchdown lead back after you started to climb out of that early 14-0 hold. I don't know. It was one of multiple moments in this one where the Cougs had a chance to take back momentum in this game and just couldn't get it back from the Mountaineers, or gave West Virginia the opportunity to get right back in it.
Yeah, I think that's a good play. That was very emblematic of what this game was for the Cougs.
So I sort of feel bad leading with Cougar defense talk for the first time in a while and having it be a week where we don't have as much nice to say about the week's defensive performance. And there's probably a few times I say something nice. I don't think the performance is exactly as bad as you would think, seeing 45. Like, if you just saw West Virginia won 45-35, like, wow, the defense played terrible. And the defense didn't play well, but as we've already kind of touched on, like, offense contributed there. Like, you gave them a pick six, you gave them a short field, but even if you want to just put 31 points on the Cougar defense, that still represents West Virginia's best performance of the season against an FBS opponent. You still made their offense look good to a level that no other opposing defense. I mean, the UCF team we're going to talk about here later this episode, UCF never let this team get close. UCF at home kicked the stuffing at this West Virginia team. And you never led this game. You were either tied or trailing every moment of this football game. And defense certainly contributed there. And again, you can and should point the finger at least somewhat at the Cougar offense for giving the ball away 4 times on Saturday. But we also, I want to say that -4 turnover margin, we can also say we have enough data at this point to say this Cougar defense has not been good at turning opponents over. Like, should you expect them to, to turn over that -4 all themselves? No. But if this becomes like a -2 turnover margin, it's a lot less crazy of a lift to actually win this game. And these last 3 games, Bobby, this defense has gotten credit for a grand total of 1 turnover. And that 1 turnover was a fumble by Sam Levitt 2 games ago that, sorry if this hurts any Cougar fans' feelings, probably was an incomplete pass in reality. And even if you believe that was truly a fumble, that was the ball slipping out of his hand versus, I believe, the Cougar defense doing anything to make that happen. And if you zoom out further, the Cougar defense only has 5 takeaways total in Big 12 play. And 2 of those were interceptions against Colorado backup quarterback Ryan Staub. Again, wouldn't be fair of me to expect this defense to overturn the offense giving the ball away 4 times. But this lack of ability to take away the ball, not the only issue, maybe not even the biggest issue on Saturday, but it was something that I didn't really think about immediately after the game that has caught my eye since then about this defensive performance. Bobby, what are your biggest takeaways from a defensive performance to forget on Saturday against West Virginia?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was how much I said I love this West Virginia offense in terms of like its scheme and everything like that. I think I joked with you it was a real monkey's paw situation that I was experiencing on Saturday because I was like, you know, they hadn't been able to run their offense exactly how they want to. They haven't had it didn't feel like they had the horses to do it. And then the first 2 drives,
Guess what? They
game,
do.
Yeah, the first 2 drives of the game, they absolutely do it. They pull it off, and I'm watching it going like, it's pretty. I wish it wasn't against us, but it was. It certainly was pretty. They just those first couple of drives, they just had everywhere they wanted to go, do anything they wanted to do. Now I will give the Cougar defense a little bit of credit, Austin Armstrong a little bit of credit here. Once it seemed West Virginia got off their initial script of like their first 20 plays, their first 25 plays, it seemed the Cougs really were able to adapt back and get some stops, some key stops there. And then you kind of saw the difference in the turnover margin kind of kick in there and really start to affect the defense. So I think I didn't even put 2 and 2 together on the turnovers, but yeah, we haven't really forced the ball a lot. It didn't seem like we were getting to the quarterback very much, whether you look at sacks or you look at just pressures. It just seemed like they had all the time that they wanted to just kind of win the game, just run the offense they wanted to run. That if they were able to run outside, they were able to run inside, they were able to beat us deep, they were able to beat us on short passes, they were able to just whip your butt the entire time, and that is a little disheartening. I mean, it's the would you say second bad performance in the last 3 weeks from this Cougar defense?
Yes, very much so.
Like, you had a good one against Arizona State, but it's been a couple of stinkers, and you just kind of go, is this the Cougs kind of coming back down to earth? I don't exactly remember where the Cougs were. I don't exactly remember where they were a couple of weeks ago, SP plus. But now I want to say this defense.
We were like high 20s, I want to say.
Yeah, this Cougar defense is now at 42. And we said we wanted.
I was just going to say, Arizona game, worst passing performance of the season. Would you say this is like your worst rushing defense performance of the season?
Yeah, it really feels like this defense played above what maybe we expected them to and where they probably were. And now we're starting to see it come back down to earth a little bit. And we're seeing why Coach Fritz is so big on turnovers, in my opinion, just because you can see how now it's going to, if this is what the defense truly is, you cannot give the other team 4 opportunities at a shorter field.
No doubt. And the Arizona game, this game, don't cancel out mostly, I think good performances this year. Don't cancel out a very good one at Arizona State. But I don't think it's overreacting to be a little worried that in your last 3 games, 2 of them were pretty comfortably your worst defensive performances of the season. It's one thing to start the season out slow, then kind of show progress as you get more and more games into the season. I think in the broadest sense, that describes what the Cougar offense has been. And believe me, there's a lot to be critical about Saturday's offensive performance that we're going to get to here. But even in a bad performance, that offense still managed 5 touchdown drives. And were it not for an unbelievably bad pick by Wigman deep in West Virginia territory, that probably would have at least been a field goal, a 6 scoring drive there. And 5 touchdown drives against a Big 12 opponent at the start of the season, even the worst ones. Like, would you have felt after the SFA game, Bobby, wildly confident that we were going to see a number of games where we had at least like 5 scoring drives?
Not 5. So. Yeah, I would have hoped 5. I could see it happening in maybe the next game versus Rice, but against a Big 12 opponent, I don't think I really saw that coming.
That is to say that even off a bad week, that offense is still a unit that I think no Cougar fan would argue isn't noticeably better than it was in early September. Yeah.
Which one? I'm sorry.
The offense.
Yes. I thought I thought we were talking defense, and I was like,
I'm setting up. That guy. Even with this week's bad performance, you would say, hey, I still feel better about the offense now than they did after SFA, after Rice, et cetera, et cetera. Yes. Can't say that about the defense right now, which is at my meandering point here. And as I recall, there weren't any key players missing at any level of the defense that I know of for Saturday's game. So you can't use the injury excuse. West Virginia, a team that has mostly been one of the worst offenses in the Big 12 and in college football at large this season, kicked the Cougs' butt at the point of attack on Saturday. It felt like a mirror image of what the Cougar offense has done to opponents on weeks where that offense is working well. They ran the ball in a way that, not that you never got them off the field, but that you couldn't consistently get them off the field, and hitting you with big plays at times in both the run and the pass game. I don't think any sequence in real time made me angrier, at least when it came to the Cougar defense from this game, than the 4th and 4, where the Cougar defense looked wholly unprepared for West Virginia to go for it in that spot. And if possible, even less prepared for what Mountaineer quarterback Scotty Fox did, running the ball, which he did and ran for the touchdown, 34 yards with no Cougar defender even being close to him. That is an all-around failure. It's a failure of the coaching staff. It's a failure of the 11 guys in the field. The deep ball on 4th and long from Scotty Fox to Jeff Weimer to take West Virginia from deep in their own territory to deep in U of H territory, West Virginia's final touchdown drive, another comprehensive failure. And a reminder, Bobby, that West Virginia was so confident against the Cougar defense that only up 38-28 with enough time for U of H to theoretically come back and facing a 4th and long in their own territory, they still went for it and still got the 4th down yardage plus 44. That's how little the Mountaineer offense was troubled by the Cougar defense on Saturday. And of course, the players are the ones who actually go out there and play down to down. You know, it's again, when there's a breakdown, you can't just immediately be like, it's the defensive coordinator's fault. There are layers to this, but also when your job title is defensive coordinator and you were the person most responsible for the defensive on-field product, Saturday can't be judged as anything but a failure by you, can't be judged as anything but a failure by the players of the field. Doesn't mean the season's a failure or anything close to it. Many more weeks this season to date have been good than bad, no matter the recent trends that you and I have talked about here. But you also can't use the season's results to just hand wave away a bad day and also ignore that 2 of your 3 performances have been the 2 worst performances this season. You got a big chance coming up for a road bounce back against an opponent who has been very good on their own field, but hasn't been a consistently great team offensively. I think some comparisons there 2 weeks ago against ASU, but it's got to happen. Like, it's got to get better, or November is going to be a very rough month for this defense, because especially your last 2 Big 12 opponents, those are teams that are going to find you out. And I'm referring to Baylor and TCU, but frankly, UCF too. Like, they're going to find you out defensively if you don't get a lot better. If you don't see the things that went wrong on Saturday and make the corrections, in film room, on the field, any and all the things that you do as football players and a football coaching staff.
Yeah, it's I think there was a lot of problems with some of the scheme. I don't know if it was all on Coach Armstrong or anything like that, but it was certainly a disappointing performance from the defense there. But I do wonder if this is kind of what the defense is, and it's kind of coming back down to earth, like I said earlier.
Yeah, water finding its level and such. Do you have any other West Virginia game-related defensive thoughts, Bobby?
No, sir.
So I guess it speaks to the higher standards that we have for Cougar offense, which I kind of talked a little bit about when I was digressing earlier, that on a day where the offense had 5 touchdown drives, only one of which came on anything like a short field, and threw for over 300 yards, undeniably, that the eye test would still tell you that this was a good offensive performance. And mostly, but not entirely, but mostly, you could attribute that to turnovers. Connor Wigman threw 2 picks, one of which is certainly a leading candidate for worst turnover by any Cougar player this season. On 1st and 10, like, everything about this pick is bad, Bobby, but the fact that it was on 1st and 10 on a drive where you were moving the ball in chunks very much looked like that was going to be the drive where you truly took momentum back in this game. Cougars are down 24-21, but if you're watching this, the Cougars were definitely the better team for the quarter or so in the lead up to that. Connor Wigman throws the ball insanely behind Amari Thomas and telegraphed it well enough that Mountaineer defensive back Jordan Scruggs basically didn't have to break stride as he caught the ball and took it 80 yards to the house to put the Mountaineers back up 2 scores. So instead of either tying it or going up 28-24, bam, you're now back down 2 scores once again in this game. You thought you were about to get the lead, and just once again, West Virginia completely flips the script on you. I mean, again, if ifs were fifths, but if you score a touchdown that drive, you finally take the lead on a West Virginia team that you would think coming to this game a bit low on confidence. Certainly no guarantee that this game goes differently when it's all said and done. We've talked about the defensive warts, the fact that West Virginia ran the ball at you on will, the fact that you couldn't really turn them over. But it's hard not to be a tormenting thought for us and all Cougar fans who watch this game if that sequence doesn't go differently. Bobby, what are your offensive takeaways from this one?
Yeah, this is a classic box score, looks great kind of game, right? You see 400 to 403 yards. Connor was 25 of 38 for 318, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but it wasn't nearly as good as those stats kind of sound. You think 2 interceptions, you kind of hope one of those is an arm punt kind of deal, something like that, but it wasn't. I think that pass that you're talking about was one of the worst throws I've seen, and it reminded me when we were watching his film, he threw a pass a lot like that one, where the commentator literally went, when it left his hand, when it left Wigman's hand, the commentator went, "Oh no!" Like, the national commentator knew as soon as it left his hand. And I gotta be honest, when he let that one go, it was like, Well, that one's not coming back to the Cougs here. Unless it is a classic example of wide receiver turned DB. You knew that was going to be a house call, and yeah, so that was just pretty ugly. I think this was the worst O-line performance that we had this year, especially on the run side. You had multiple carries of Dean Connors where he was receiving the ball, and about a tenth of a second after he receives the handoff, he's running into an offensive lineman who has been pushed back into the backfield. So just just a bad performance from the O-line there. Um, I don't like calling players out. We don't always call players out. We try not to, but I do feel like we call out Wigman a lot, and when he has a good game, when he doesn't have a good game, and we have no problem saying when he does have a bad game. I'll just say it wasn't Dalton Merriman's best game that he's ever had. You had the overlooked play that I talked about where he got beaten and caused the fumble, made you stall there, and then my second play was going to be the penalty on him where it was I want to say 3rd and 5, and he gets called for a false start. It stops you from scoring, turns it into a 3rd and 10 versus a 3rd and 5, a lot less manageable. You end up not picking it up there. That was a big play in the game as well. So, but yeah, it was just, the pick six, like we said, might be the worst throw we've seen. It wasn't that the offense was necessarily bad. They just made, like, there were times where this offense was moving the ball effectively. It was a game where it just seemed like we shot ourselves in the foot a lot. A penalty at a bad time, or you are driving the ball really well. Next thing you know, it is 3rd and 14, and you're just like, what happened on 1st and 2nd down there? We did a lot of things to just really beat ourselves on Saturday.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you had, I think, about 400 total yards when it was all said and done.
It was 400 to 403.
And none of it was in garbage time because, unfortunately, you didn't get the ball back late. I mean, I don't think everyone would have qualified as garbage time. I mean, it may be borderline when you were down 17. So you move the ball while it was still a football game with potentially time left to win. I don't really disagree too much with your assessment of this being the worst O-line performance. I might nominate Oregon State for that as well. Like
that's fair.
That's the pantheon there, but it was a bad one. Like there's no need to put lipstick on the pig there. Certainly for run blocking, it wasn't good. I mean, not to follow Dean Connors. Even if you took Dean Connors' longest run of the game out, he still had a respectable 12 carries for 48 yards. But I think the biggest problem is you only gave 18 carries to your two primary backs. This one, Dean Connors and DJ Butler. And those guys only lost a combined 1 yard in their carries. But the problem was you were chasing a multi-touchdown deficit early. And the problem was I don't think you could fault the offensive coaches for looking at how the O-line was run blocking and not having a ton of confidence there. And I think one of the biggest differences between this game and the last two, which you won, is that you could never really get Connor going in the run game. I mean, credit to West Virginia's defense and their defensive coordinator, Zach Alley, who I wish I had name-checked in our West Virginia preview because he's a really, really highly regarded young defensive coach under Brett Venables at Oklahoma, was DC at UL Monroe while Rodriguez was OC there when he was like just getting back into coaching after kind of we'll just say not very PR friendly exit at Arizona. So I think like that guy's a star, and I think he had a very good plan for the Cougars. You couldn't get Wigman going like you did against the last two opponents, and I think you give your opponent at least some credit for having a good plan to keep that from happening. And I don't think that was really an issue of, well, the offense wasn't trying Wigman in the run game. It was never working. And I don't think I'm leaving this game with too many complaints about how the game was called by OC Slade Nagel. It wasn't like he was in the booth telling Connor Wigman to telegraph the ball way behind Amari Thomas deep in West Virginia territory.
Or drop the ball a ton on dropbacks. That first pick by Wigman wasn't nearly as bad. I don't think that's going to show up in any season of lowlights, but kind of a low percentage deep ball into double coverage that I think took a somewhat fortuitous bounce to be West Virginia turnover. That sucks, but it's football sometimes, and it's kind of the risks that come when you throw the ball in traffic. Usually you're not going to get punished that much by that throw, but sometimes you will. And
maybe with the benefit of hindsight, even with the multi-touchdown deficit, you go fractionally less pass heavy, maybe give Dean Connors a little bit more of a chance to get things going. But again, I don't blame the offensive staff and Slade Nagel for not looking at what the Cougar O-line was doing and being wildly confident that you could establish the run. And I'm not going to come back here and say that anything like that would have been the difference between winning and losing. This just wasn't a good game from your offensive line after would have been some unmistakable positive trends when it came to keeping Connor Wigman upright, when it came to being able to run the football. I wouldn't put the turnovers on the O-line, but in the most general sense, I think West Virginia did more to disrupt and put pressure on the quarterback than most of your last few opponents. Again, this is still an O-line playing much better than it was in early September, but I think Saturday was a reminder that if this U of H offense has to go pass first or has to in some way chase an early deficit because you're not able to get anything in the run game, then we are going to see this O-line's limitations doing lots of pass blocking. I mean, there's a reason why when this offense is humming that it's mostly throwing the ball around 20 to 25 times per game. Like that's about the level to which I think this offense could do it and be comfortable. But I don't want to overlook what an incredible game Amari Thomas had, even in losing after one of the performances of the season by a Cougar offensive player of any type. First touchdown reception, he just beat his man one-on-one in the end zone. The second one was, I'm not going to not give him credit, but that was more really nice play design. Loses his man, catches the ball around the line, ran into the end zone, goes mostly untouched. And the best one, his third and final touchdown reception ended up being the Cougs' final scoring drive of the game. He just beats his man on a deep ball for another really nice touchdown, ended up being his longest reception of the day. I hate for Amari that this came in a game where no Cougar fan is going to have very many positive memories from, but continues to have a fantastic season. If anything, has exceeded the very high expectations that I had from coming into the season off of two really good seasons at UAB, and I think that you had for him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great performance by Amari there. Like you said, some of those catches were absolutely amazing. So yeah, great game from him.
Yeah, good game from Tanner Koziol as well. Won't put the grade on that, but I would say good one.
Yep.
There too.
Absolutely.
Do we have any other offense-specific thoughts from this game, Bobby?
No, sir.
So there have been a lot of chatter on the Cougar World Wide Web in the aftermath of this game about attendance, more specifically the poor crowd that the Cougs got for this one in Houston. I'm going to put a timer on this. I think I said 5 minutes when we talked about this, but I'm not going to limit us to that, Bobby. Do we think we could do this in 7 minutes?
I do.
Okay. What do you make of all this? And I'm hitting the start of this timer now. What would you do, Bobby, if you could, I think, improve the situation?
What would I do, and what do I think the problem is are a little bit different questions. I think
start with whichever question you would like to.
I think the problem is, just in my opinion, is we don't have an engaged alumni fan base. We can blame parking and we can blame ticket prices and we can do all that. But I've had this theory, and I've told it to you, that we lost one, maybe two generations of Cougar fans. The fans from 97 to probably 2005 when the team started getting decent again, and then you win the conference title in 06. So I try to say kids who graduated 05, which would be like that 04 football season, there was no reason for them to love the University of Houston. It was a place where they showed up, they went to school. And look, I don't blame them for that. You weren't in the SWC, your teams were bad. Like, I totally get it. But I feel the thing that the athletic department could do that would really, really make a difference is just go out into the community and see who has their UH degree and make them proud of that U of H degree. Just remind them that that degree that you have, you earned it at a really good university, and you should support where you went in. A lot of times schools get attached to, oh, I have these great memories there. Like you and I, we have great memories at U of H. If you went to school at U of H in 1999, I mean, you might have some from, it's not like Greek life was a huge thing back then from what I've heard. What tied you to the university? Well, now what can tie you back to the university is coming back out. You got to go and engage the alumni. And I'm not, because I think we had this discussion. How many Cougar fans do you know that listen to us, that have told us they listen to us fit in that age range. It's very low. So that's just me. I think that's the biggest thing. I think there's definitely problems, overall, the game day experience. I came to a game last year. I wanted to get there early to tailgate, and I showed up with Dustin and Bill, and I was like, this sucks. Like this.
I just remember from 3 years ago when you went to the Temple game and you were just like, it was a nightmare getting in and out for a game where there was like 20,000 people.
Yeah, because I tried to park, and when I parked at the garage, I showed up late, right? Because I had to work. So I showed up like near the end of the first quarter. I'm at the garage, down by like the wellness center, right?
Yeah, the Bauer Wellness Center garage.
Yeah, so like I'm all the way down there, and I go to pay, and the lady's machine doesn't work. She asked the other lady who doesn't have like a problem with her. She doesn't have a customer or anything. So they come over and they try to fix her machine. I'm like, guys, check me out with the other machine and then fix it. But like, I'm trying to get to the game right now, and it was a whole debacle. I mean, it cost like $25 to park over there 3 years ago. I don't know what it's at now. That's across campus.
Yeah, it's like a 15-minute, 20-minute walk. Like,
yeah,
I went to classes over there. Is not close at all to the football stadium.
And I only parked there because I came in on the spur, so it was just easier, right? Get in, and I felt I could get across. So it's like, I don't know, man. I don't think there's an easy solution, but it sucks going to games, and I'm somebody who likes going to games. I go to other teams' games. I look at the basketball team last night, right? We had I showed you a tweet of this strawberry popsicle thing that looked delicious. Cougar Paul.
Apparently that's an item at the football stadium too, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't know, like that seems like that would be pretty nice in August, but now that I know, but like,
would you want to wait 20 minutes for it? Which, like, apparently that's kind of the in-stadium experience.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very frustrating. I think bigger picture, you have to engage that alumni fan base that you lost in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then when you get them to a game, make it not suck. And I have ideas on how to make it not suck, right? But like stale hot dogs, what are we doing? Like, what are you doing serving stale hot dog buns?
I would say, like, the problems are twofold, and I'm not going to act like I have the magic solution to these problems. The game day experience and the people who are able to go pretty often, unfortunately not me because I live almost 2,000 miles from the stadium these days, but the people who actually goes pretty consistently, even loving U of H, say the experience sucks. You are not going to get people outside. If the hardcores are like, oh, this is a slog to go to, what hope do you have of getting the casual fans?
Yeah.
And I have more faith in this athletic director to solve that than his predecessor, which isn't to say I have unlimited faith in this AD to solve it, because it does seem like whenever he's in front of Mike, and again, like, a lot of the stuff he says sounds good, and I appreciate that he at least is aware of this fan base not being very happy with that right now. But there's a lot of just like, oh, well, we can't do this or we can't do that. Like, that's the fucking refrain. Like, always, like, if somebody's been a Cougar fan for a very long time, oh, well, we can't do this because of this. And I'll give Dr. Couture credit. I don't think Dr. Couture is a we can't do this kind of person. Like, I
agree.
It's a miserable in-person experience, so you can't expect to get the casual fans out there for it. That being said, this is a top 25 team. And like that, it's an incredibly soft, entitled fan base thing. And I'm not going to belabor this point because chances are, if you're listening, again, you're
as we've said before.
So I'm not going to rant at you, the people who are likely not the problem here. But I still don't think, even acknowledging everything we've said about the game day experience being bad and U of H, I think, overpricing it for demand and what it is as a product right now, this was still a top 25 team. Like, this team still deserved a better crowd, as poor as the effort was on Saturday at the stadium.
Yeah, I always hate the like, oh, the team. This is why fans don't come out. You lose a game like this when you're building all the momentum. Look, that always pisses me off because you didn't go to the game, right?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't go to the game. You didn't know this was going to be the effort by U of H and this game was going to result like this. You didn't go anyways. So shut the hell up. Like, oh, we build all this momentum and then we just lose it because were you there? Like, I don't know. I like you said, we live pretty far away, and I would love the opportunity to go to a U of H game 30 minutes from where I live, 40 minutes from where I live. I would love that opportunity. But it just complaining about an 11 o'clock kick. We're not the only school who
Everyone
has to
gets
play at
them.
11.
If anything, some of the Big Ten schools get him disproportionately because of Big Noon.
Yeah, it's like, and guess what? You can tell me what you want, but Columbus is full, and Houston's a lot bigger than Columbus, but there's still things to do in Columbus too on a Saturday.
I mean, Ohio State's also the pro team of that
Yeah.
of that state, so but I get your point. All right, so
that state has 2 pro teams.
Who?
Ohio.
The Bengals and the Browns.
That's still a pro team.
You're really, yes, technically, but I think we're stretching the definition there, Bobby. Have we complained enough about attendance and the things that we're not happy about with U of H there?
I think so.
So we'll get to the game to come this week. We have a short week to look ahead to as the Cougars will be back on the road, traveling east to face a familiar face from our previous conferences and our current one. Cougars will be taking on the UCF Knights on Friday night, as we've been doing for most of the season. We brought on a familiar face from our 10-12 friends at the Sons of UCF to give us a little more insider info on this week's opponent. So here that is. We're very excited to welcome on tonight, for not the first time here at the Scott Holm podcast, Adam Eaton, co-host of the UCF podcast, Sons of UCF. Adam, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us tonight.
It just feels right, Sam. We've been together a long time in the American, now the Big 12. So always good to come on and talk some ball and talk a little UCF Knights and the Houston Cougars and the race for space.
It really is. And I'm glad we have you on for our later regular season game, because we now have most of a regular season's worth of data for our respective teams. Nobody's really guessing about the program they follow this season. So what is one thing about the 2025 UCF football team that has most exceeded your preseason expectations?
The defense, Sam. I think, Alex Grinch comes in as defensive coordinator. If you're a college football fan, that name has a little bit of a stench to it. Didn't have a great tenure at Oklahoma at the end there. Did not end well at USC. He kind of comes in. A lot of folks thought he would be a retread. And Sam, this defense has really been the hallmark of this 2025 Knights team. They've really kept the UCF in games where the offense is struggling, can't score points. The defense has really been, the unit that's really been there. Up until the game against Baylor this past weekend, UCF statistically had a top 25 defense. I don't know how many people out there thought that Alex Grinch was going to be the coordinator of a top 25 defense, but that's what the Knights were through the first 7 games. So I think that's been a pleasant surprise that this defense actually has not only been good, but has really kind of kept UCF in games and frankly, kind of won them a few games throughout the year when you look at North Carolina and West Virginia.
Along the same lines, what is one thing about this year's team that has fallen below those preseason expectations, or the thing that's fallen below those expectations the most?
Sam, we're all friends here. Our offense sucks. The offense this year for the UCF has just been absolutely dreadful. It's such a Jekyll and Hyde. One game they're scoring 45 against West Virginia. The next game we can barely muster a field goal against Baylor. It's just been so up and down on this offense. The offensive line has been through a lot this year. Every time I talk about the O-line, I have to throw the caveat in there that the O-line has been through some stuff this year. The death of Sean Clark, their coach, mid-season, obviously was something that not a lot of people have to deal with in college football. I'm sure that's had an impact on this unit. But guys, they just haven't been playing up to standard, and it's really kind of put the entire offense in a bit of a juggernaut. Like, what's going to happen? Are they going to score? Are they not going to score? Can we get points on the board? It's really been week to week. You never know what to expect from this offense. And it's so confusing because you all are around in the American days, right? Like, you all remember UC Fast, right? And Scott Frost is here and we're putting up 30, 40, 50 points. And now we're lucky if we can crack 20 points a game in most contests. So this offense, guys, has just not been, I think, what UCF fans thought. And frankly, it's getting worse almost as the season progresses.
Now, you mentioned the offense, but to our eyes, it looks like in the past month or so of games that Scott Frost and UCF's offensive coaches have mostly figured out how to consistently move the ball in the run game. From someone who covers this team week in, week out, would you agree with our assessment there, or are we completely off base?
You're not terribly wrong, Bobby. I would say it's if you look at certain games, I mean, UCF racked up a ton of yards against West Virginia on the ground, right? They racked up a ton of yards in the first half against Kansas. So there are pockets of time where this looks like a capable running offense, but I think those stats skew what you see throughout the entire game. They may be able to pop a couple of 50, 60-yard runs, but that's not something they do consistently. And the other problem, guys, is they're a good running team in between the 20s. Once we get towards the red zone, that's when the UCF offense just seems to just self-destruct and offsides penalties and other infractions. So there are pockets, Bobby, where they can hit you. Jaden Nixon is a name that you all may hear on Friday. He's the home run hitter, if you will, for UCF in that backfield. He's got 2 touchdown runs this year of 80 plus yards. So he can take the ball and make a cut and hit his head in the goalpost. But that skews a little bit, I think, of the run data that you might see on paper. But they want to run the football. I mean, don't make no mistake about it. They can't throw it very well. So they want to run the football. That O-line can hold up. Miles Montgomery and Jay Nixon can do some damage, and they have in pockets, Bobby. Just has not been consistent enough throughout the season.
I want to zoom in on something we talked about just a little bit ago, the UCF defense. I remember, like you, seeing that UCF hired Alex Grinch in the offseason. Coach's reputation took a bit of a hit from his stint as USC's defensive coordinator. Yeah. And an infamous name for U of H fans, former Cougar defensive coordinator Mark D'Onofrio hired as linebackers coach. And thinking to myself, I don't really like those hires. But I mean, through 9 games this season, indisputably better of the 2 main units, a top 25 one in a lot of metrics. I lose just under 19 points per game. I believe when I looked at UCF's numbers is the current points allowed average. So what have been the biggest reasons why this Knights defense has exceeded expectations this season, why it's been the better of the 2 main units?
Yeah, I think a couple things, guys. I think, first of all, team speed on defense. I mean, this is a fast defense. These guys are quick, they're fast, and they can get to the ball carrier, right? So, they may not have the best coverage ever, but they haven't had issues tackling this year. They can run and swarm and get to the ball. So you may get a 12-yard pass, but you're not making that a 30 or 40-yard pass, right? You're down after 12, 13, 14 yards. So I think they've done a good job of flying around, attacking the ball, getting guys on the ground, which is not something UCF has done really well in the past. I think the linebackers have been surprising. Linebackers been in a position for the last couple of seasons at UCF where you just never knew what to expect. And they got 2 guys now in Lewis Carter and Cole Kozlowski. Kozlowski is like the team maniac, right? This guy just runs sideline to sideline, just looking to hit somebody. They've got some talent on that linebacker side that I think is surprising for Knights fans. I'd be curious to figure out what we will see on Friday when we play Houston, because the Knights line had been playing really well. They've suffered some injuries the last couple of weeks that have really hurt them. Horace Lockett is out now for the season. Sincere Edwards now out for the season. They're getting thinner on that front line. If Nigel Kelly and Malachi Lawrence, who were 2 kind of like the speed edge rushers, if they're not in the game, the Knights have had a hard time getting pressure with those guys out. So it'll be interesting to see how the line holds up. But I think Sam, it's been team speed and the ability to kind of get guys on the ground. I feel like this is kind of like a bad thing to say about a defense. So I don't know if I'm insulting UCF, so I apologize if you're listening. But it's been kind of a bend, don't break defense too. Like, they've given up some chunk plays, but they seem to bow up when the time is needed as well. Now that bit them a little bit in the last game against Baylor, but they've been a bit bend, don't break, but able to step in and make plays when the time is right. So timely plays, team speed, and a little bit better efficiency on linebacker, I think, has been the recipe that's got the Knights, at least, through the first 7 games. I mean, not game 8, but for the first 7 games, had them on the right side of the defensive statistics.
All right, so something both of us noticed when we were doing our research on UCF football has been the up and down of this year's team. For example, decisively beating West Virginia in a way that UH certainly didn't do, and a similar win over UNC. You also had a respectable loss to a pretty good KU team, but also a complete no-show at Baylor and a non-competitive loss at K-State. What have been the common themes of the better performances and the common themes of those bad performances?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to sound super cliche, but it's really home and road, right? The UCF has not been a team that can win on the road right now. So I think this is year 3 of the Big 12 for the Knights. They have 2 road wins all time in Big 12 play. 1 in 2024, 1 in 2023. That's it. So they've had a hard time winning on the road. So what you're talking about there, Bobby, I think a lot of it is the home and road splits, but it's been the Jekyll and Hyde nature of this offense. If the offensive line can block, if the running game can get established, UCF can put together some offensive output, but that has just not been something you've seen throughout the year. I hate to make excuses. I'll say the other thing, though, for the UCF team has been just the quarterbacks have been a revolving door. Cam Fancher starts the season off as QB1, lasts all of 27 plays before he's out with a back injury. Taven Jackson comes in, plays okay. He gets hit with a shoulder injury. He's out. Ja'Cory Brown replaces him for about 5 snaps. He injures his shoulder. He's out. Cam Fancher then comes back into play against Cincinnati, cracks 2 ribs. He's back out again. Taven Jackson now back at quarterback. So it's been tough to get continuity, I think, offensively with a new quarterback seemingly every other game, an O-line that's still really trying to figure it out and bring it together. And those have really been the 2 biggest issues. Third is penalties, guys. UCF averaging almost 8 penalties a game. I think they're 109th in the nation, which is not on the good side, by the way. Against Baylor, you mentioned this, Bobby, 8 penalties against Baylor. 7 of those 8 were on the offense. 5 of those 7 were either illegal formation, delay of a game, or false start. I mean, they continue to find ways to shoot themselves in the foot. This team is not good enough just on paper to beat the team sometimes across the line of scrimmage. They can't beat the line of scrimmage and themselves in a game. And games UCF's lost, that's been the bugaboo, is not only are they maybe not playing well, but they're also hurting themselves in the foot. My favorite stat of all time, you guys might like this as football fans, UCF had a 17-play, 40-yard drive that lasted 9 minutes against Cincinnati and ended up in a punt because there were so many penalties. They ended up going back and forth across the middle of the field, and after 17 plays, had to punt the ball back. That's UCF's season in a nutshell. 17 plays, 40 yards, 9 minutes, and a punt.
Bobby, that just kind of sounds like, you tell me if I'm wrong, that sounds like something we did Dana's last year.
Yes.
In one of those losses where we scored like 1 touchdown or something like that. Could have been, honestly, could have been from like the season finale to you guys that year. That's how that one was going.
Yeah, not fun.
Who's the Knights player that, or players, if you find this hard to get down to one here, that the 2 of us are likely overlooking in our efforts to preview this Knights team?
Offensively, look, you're going to hear a lot about the running backs. I think Miles Montgomery, Jaden Nixon are a 1-2 punch. Although Montgomery's out carrying Nixon 3-1, but Nixon has 12 yards a carry, I believe, and Montgomery's in the 5-6 range. So, certainly, Montgomery, while more the bruising power back, I think Nixon's the explosive, make a big play back. He hasn't played as much, so we'll see. I think receivers have been just a hot mess. No one's really kind of stepped up and kind of taken that shot. 2 names you're going to see on that front. Dwayne Thomas Jr., they call him Speedy. He wears number 7. He'll be in the backfield. He'll be kind of tunnel screen guy, right? They'll kind of throw some reverses to him. So you'll see him kind of gadget-wise. But if Taven Jackson is the quarterback against Houston, as right now we expect him to be, Dylan Wade, the tight end, wears number 0. That seems to be his favorite receiver. That's the guy he'll target a bunch over the middle, and they'll get 5, 6, 7 yards and some of those chunk plays there. But really offensively, no receiver's gonna step up and wow you on screen there. I think they're all okay. None of them are great. I think Wade and Thomas are probably the 2 names that you maybe not have heard as much about that could cause some problems for Houston on Friday.
All right, so Cougar fans may be vaguely aware, but Friday's game in Orlando will be UCF's Space Game, which is a big annual game for this football program. Besides the cool special uniforms, can you give us and our listeners a quick explainer of the Space Game and maybe why UCF believes they are Space U?
So here's what I can tell you. So UCF's 50-yard line is the exact same coordinate as the launch pad at NASA. UCF was founded in 1963. It was actually called Florida Technological University, FTU for short, when they started. No football program, no nothing. And they were started as kind of a feeder system for NASA, which is in Cape Canaveral, which is, 20 miles away from UCF campus. That was the initial, I think, implementation of having a school in Orlando. At some point, obviously, it morphed into UCF, and so it kind of changed from that. The original mascot was a citronaut, believe it or not, which if you're from Florida, it's half orange, half space person, because of course, why wouldn't it be, right? So that's how
really
you get
cool.
Yeah, it
actually is a really cool logo.
No problem with anyone hearing me say this on the record. It is cool as hell.
It's a really cool logo, but not something you ever would have put together, right? So I think that's how the space, integration with NASA started in UCF. And then for some reason, it's funny, Scott Frost met the media on Monday, and this is his second stint for those who don't remember. He was at UCF, obviously, initially in 2016, 2017. he actually was part of the first space game. And back then UCF just put a patch on the jersey. And so at the presser, he was like, I learned the other day I was in a space game and didn't even realize it, because initially it was just kind of like one of those military appreciation games or, salute to service games, right? Where you put a patch on and everyone kind of, waves and cheers. And at some point, somebody in the creative department said, hey, let's do a new uniform for this. And that's kind of how the space game was born, was just kind of a creative effort to say, let's do something a little different than just putting a patch on. So I wish I could tell you there was some sort of high level like strategy session around like, let's go claim space. But it really, I think, came from just the integration between UCF and NASA. Again, I think it was 2017. It was the first ever. It was a small triangle patch on the right shoulder. You blinked and you missed it on the uniform. And I think at that point, UCF was really kind of looking to find something cool and creative. This is back to, and this is a knock I often have on our team. Back in the early days, and you guys are part of this in the American too, I kind of miss the American for one sense, is you could kind of be that like needling underdog, right? Like you all in 2015, UCF in 2017, you'd kind of be that disruptor, right? That little aggravant that was on everybody's nerves. And hey, look at us over here. And you could do fun, cool stuff because, hey, why not? Who's going to stop us, right? And that was kind of UCF's motto in 2017, 2018. And I think they were trying some cool stuff, and that's how the Space Gate came to pass. So, I wish we could do more of that now that you're in the quote big boy league per se, but I miss kind of that scrappiness that was the American Conference back in the day. But I think that's how the space uniform was born for UCF. It's just kind of a way to have some fun and just be like, hey, we're this kooky, weird conference and we win a bunch of stuff and you don't know what to do with us, but here we are, and here's our cool uniform. I think that's how it started, and now 8 years later it continues on. Undefeated, by the way, are the Knights in the space game. So 8-0 is on the line as the race for space when Houston comes to town on Friday.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. It segues nicely to my last one here for you tonight. You could be as specific or vague as you want with your answer here. What do you think Friday night's game between the Knights and Cougs will look like when it actually gets played on the field?
Yeah, it's a great question. I wish I could tell you what this Knights team will do. All I can tell you is this: they are much better on at home than on the road. So I would expect to see a better performance than you saw against Baylor if you watched that game on Saturday. Bobby, you brought up the Kansas game, which is a really good example of this UCF team. That first half, UCF's up 20 to I think 13 or something like that at halftime. They ran all over Kansas, and we all thought like, hey, here we go. We're about to get a Big 12 win. Third quarter, UCF has -1 yards on offense in the third quarter, and Kansas just comes out and blows the doors off them in the fourth quarter. We can't keep back up, right? So I think you're going to see a better UCF team in this game. Can they sustain it for 4 quarters? I think is going to be the challenge. And can they avoid the big mistake? Can they avoid, a big 80-yard pass play that gets them down to the 10, and then 3 false start penalties that have them settle in for a field goal? UCF also terrible at getting 1 yard. There have been multiple times this year where UCF has been on 3rd and 4th and 1 or fewer and has not been able to convert on that. So if you see UCF on a 3rd and 4th and 1, you should feel really good about your chances of stopping that, because the Knights have not found a way to do that. So much so that we threw to a backup right guard who was tackle eligible in the Baylor game for reasons known only to Scott Frost, I suppose. So I expect they'll play better, Sam, but I'm still until they put together a full, complete game, kind of what you saw against West Virginia, and they can do that consistently. Fingers are crossed, and I'm a homer, so I'm going to go with my Knights, but like 28-27 would be my guess on score, because I don't have any faith that this team is going to be able to put it together for 4 quarters.
Yeah, I told Bobby as soon as we found out this was the space game. I think it was preseason, so we were kind of like, you do your look ahead at the schedule and see like what games you think could be wins and losses. And I'm just like, kind of really don't care what UCF has on the field. Like, we're the space game opponent, so not feeling great about that. Adam, great as always. Tell the folks listening where they can find the work that you and the Suns do on the World Wide Web.
Yeah, hit us on all your social media platforms, X, Instagram, all that stuff. You can just search Sons of UCF. We're on those. Our YouTube channel at Sons of UCF is where you get all of our content. We have video feeds, recaps, post-game analysis, so studio shows, podcasts. So go to the Sons of UCF YouTube feed and check out our website at sonsofUCF.com.
Typically from here, I would just launch into my thoughts on the opponent, but I will quickly say we like all of our guests who come on here. Completely candidly, there has not been a person this season who wasn't very accommodating, who I don't feel added to my knowledge of that program and my efforts to preview them. But I especially like the guys over at the Sons of UCF because they do like we do and cover the entirety of UCF's athletics offerings, especially using current students who are aspiring to get into sports. As kind of their on-the-ground coverage there. on campus. So I appreciate not just Adam's time and insights into UCF football in this episode, but I always want to tip my hat extra to any podcast, publication, just entity of any kind who really goes the extra mile to cover all of a school's athletic offerings outside the Big Two. But we'll get to the 2025 Knights football team here. I'm a little gun shy this week because I came on here last episode and talked about a West Virginia team that looked like one of the worst offenses that U of H would face this season. Looked like a team short on quality wins, having the first-year head coach and staff growing pains. And then that team beat U of H by double digits in the home stadium, rushed for over 200 yards, had by far its best offense of the game year, et cetera, et cetera. You all watched it. I won't beat us all over the head with it any more than I've already done in this episode. You heard our guest, Bobby. UCF has struggled this season in some key areas, mostly offensively, because I generally agree with Adam's assessment that they've had a good defense this year. They've been constantly swapping quarterbacks in and out because guys are hurt. He's not exaggerating because we follow them, so I kind of keep an eye on them. And I just feel like constantly on game day, it's like Sons of UCF, Jackson in at quarterback, Fancher being examined on the sidelines, Fancher and Jackson both doubtful for this week. Just like all sorts of, like, they really have been in quarterback injury hell this year. That's not them exaggerating it. Still can't get too confident because, one, obviously I just watched last week's Cougar game, and that shouldn't be cause for any Cougar fan to have more confidence. And two, as Adam mentioned in the latter stages of the interview, UCF has never lost the space game. And this team has been much better at home. They're 4-1 in Orlando this season. So that's going to be, I think, something that adds on to the difficulty here. Bobby, what have you gotten to learn about the 2025 Knights football team?
Yeah, man, this is a not very good offensive team. You know, I kind of went back and looked at different performances, and it just was kind of ugly. I mean, sure, you had 68 versus North Carolina A&T, but against Jacksonville State, they put up 17, right? They put up 11 versus Cincy. It hasn't looked very good. The other thing I really kind of noticed just following the team just in general is the hot and cold nature of the team. And then you and I were kind of talking about that and how that wanted to be one of the questions we kind of wanted to ask. And then you did a very smart thing. And then our guest pointed out the exact same thing. It's a home and away split. This UCF team has looked pretty good at home. They got the win versus North Carolina. They lost to Kansas, but it was a close one. They beat a West Virginia team that just beat us by 32 at home. And then you add on the fact that it is that space race game or the Space U game, whatever game they call it. And
Space
man,
game.
yeah, the space game. I was 0 for 2 there. Way to go me. No, but you kind of add all that and you go, this is a home game. It feels like the Cougs are kind of coming back down to earth in what this defense is. The offense has looked really good, but it's going to come. This game is a 1.5 point spread for UCF. And that feels about right to me. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like a game that's going to be close. I'm not going to use the cliche last team to have the ball wins or something like that, but it definitely feels like one of those games where it could also be a little sneaky on you, where one team jumps out to a 14-3 lead, the other team comes back, or somebody jumps out to like a 24-0 lead, and the other team kind of comes back and battles back, figures it out on defense or something like that, and the score will look pretty close, even though it'll be massive momentum swings. I think that's going to be more what this game is going to be, is one team's going to look really good for about 20 minutes, another team's going to look good for about another 20 minutes, and then who can win the final 20 or who can win the remaining 20 minutes. I really feel that's what we're going to see on Friday night.
This might sound crazy or a little crazy on its face because nobody would argue the team I'm comparing UCF to is no one would argue that they're not having a much better 2025 season than UCF. But with this one, I keep going back to 2 weeks ago leading into the ASU game. Because that Sun Devil team, like this UCF team, was dramatically better at home. We talked about in the lead up to that one, how that team hadn't lost in Tempe since 2023. UCF doesn't have quite as unbelievable of a recent record at home. But again, not to be a dead horse, you've said it, I've said it, they've never lost a space game. They've been much better in Orlando. From what it sounds like from Adam told us, we're going to be facing the UCF quarterback who played the most snaps this season, Taven Jackson. Though, like any UCF quarterback who's seen the field extensively, he's taken a lot of physical punishment this season. A little background on the guy. He was Actually, Curtis Rourke's backup last year at Indiana started a game when he was injured, I believe against Washington last season. Solid quarterback, completing about 2/3 of his passes, 7 yards per attempt, which isn't spectacular, but it's not bad either. Interception numbers aren't bad, throwing one about every 45 attempts, which I think be reasonably happy with. The season rushing numbers won't jump off the page at you, but has 3 rushing touchdowns. Over his college career, shown an ability to call his own number in the run game, especially close to the end zone. So that's something to watch here as well. I think what gives me the most heartburn, especially after West Virginia ran all over the Cougars last week, is that UCF running back duo of Miles Montgomery and Jaden Nixon. Montgomery is about the closest thing we've seen from any opponent this year to a bell cow running back. Nixon, like our guest Adam said, is a home run hitting threat who not going to get that many carries, but I mean, when you're averaging well into double digits per carry, the ones that you get certainly count. Like a home run hitting threat in every sense of the word. I would argue we have not seen an opponent who has like bell cow running back and home run hitting running back in the same backfield quite like UCF has with Montgomery and Nixon. But also, like Adam said, those yards look nice. This has been a UCF offense that's been dramatically better between the 20s than it has been in the red zone, which I think Cougar fans can relate to that at least somewhat. I don't think the Cougar problems are as extreme in that regard, but we've certainly seen the Cougars at times this year have problems here and there finishing drives. We'll mention not nearly as explosive in the passing game, but Dylan Wade, their tight end, and Dwayne Thomas Jr., their leading receptions guy, will be the guys to watch in the passing game. Will be Jackson's safe kind of move the sticks targets in the pass game. I mean, UH fans can relate to this. The UCF offense goes as their new look O-line goes, but for the season, the numbers have been pretty good, like keeping the various quarterbacks, at least not getting sacked. I don't know if upright's the right word, because I mean, Fancher and Jackson, their 2 primary quarterbacks, have taken a lot of injuries, so don't know if I would vociferously co-sign.
Ooh,
I know.
Look at that.
We're breaking out the
that
private school words.
Yeah, look at that. The private school word comes out here.
Wouldn't be like, yeah, it's been a great O-line this year, because I don't think a UCF fan would agree there, but they've at least been able to at times keep their quarterbacks upright. Again, should be an ideal spot for the Cougar defense to bounce back, but I think we also would have said last week was a good time for the Cougar defense to bounce back, and you had your, I think, maybe worst all-around performance of the season. What to shout out some guys they had on defense. I don't make this comparison lightly, Bobby, but I mean, first off, I'll say, if UCF had even an average offense this season, I think this team has 5 or 6 wins. Like, that's how good their defense has been. A lot of Michael Batten and their linebacker, Cole Kozlowski. And I'm not just saying it because he's a white linebacker who played at a lower level before transferring up to a Big 12 program. But I mean, again, like this is a guy who never played at a higher level than the FCS. And I think considering how good their defense has been and his numbers this year, has to at least be like in the conversation for an all-conference team, which for a guy who's only going to end up playing 1 year of FBS football when it's all said and done, I think that's pretty outstanding. Got to mention Nigel Kelly, one of the few holdovers from the previous UCF regime, was an honorable mention All Big 12 pick last year. He's slightly below his 2024 pace, but does lead the Knights defense in quarterback hurries. The standout pass rushing this year, actually a guy who has been here, this is going to be his 3rd UCF staff, Bobby. Malachi Lawrence, who actually came in under the Heupel staff, could hit double-digit sacks this season if he has a strong final month of the year. So I think that's going to be something to watch there. Lawrence and Kelly have each forced 2 fumbles as well. This Knights team hasn't created as much havoc on the back end in terms of intercepting passes, but I mean, neither did West Virginia. So I think the onus is certainly back on this Cougar offense to not for the first time this season have 2 games in a row of really significant turnover problems, which again, for all the problems of Saturday, it hasn't been a back-to-back games kind of thing yet this season. We did see Baylor last week kind of solve the UCF defense with a patient, not super explosive game plan in the run and pass games. And in the most general terms, when things have gone well for the Cougar offense, that kind of describes what they've done. But I mean, you got to do it, man. Like, if you're going to win this game, you have got to have, I'm not going to say your very best performance offensively, of the season, I think that would sell UCF a little high, but you could not have a repeat certainly of last week, and it's got to be, I think, top 2 or 3 best offensive performance if you really want to win this football game.
Yeah, I think you are going to have to play really well. A 4 turnover performance is certainly not going to beat the University of Central Florida Golden Knights on Friday. I am mad at myself that I did my whole section without mentioning them by their government name. I refuse to call them. Apparently a former player. Just a funny little note about that. He was like going off about being called UCF, that it's not hard to do, blah blah blah. And I didn't know he was a former University of Central Florida Golden Knight, but he was all mad about it. And I just tweeted, his mama named him UCF. I'm gonna call him UCF. It was just one of those moments where, and he responded. He was like, "That's actually pretty funny." So it was.
I mean, I get that UCF is like how they'd want to be branded, but I mean, it's not like what really like riled me up, and I'm not like, oh, I want to defend Bill Belichick here. He's probably like one of the last people in college coach would defend, but like they were trying to get worked up that he called them Central Florida in his when UNC played them in non-conference. Like, we're UCF now, and it's just like, this man's like 70 something years old. Like, he's not like digging deep into your fucking branding, man. Like, yeah, UCF's your preferred name, and I try to call them that just out of habit, but like, if someone called you guys Central Florida, it's not an insult here.
Yeah, they called us Houston. That U of H.
Oh no! Like, I just can't. I can't imagine being that worked up about like branding. Like, I'm sorry.
Also, I just need to go on my quick rant that I always do for the University of Central Florida Golden Knights. The stadium's not supposed to bounce. You have crappy engineers. And if you try to tell me it was designed, there was a guy on Twitter who tried to tell me that. That's why you paid $1 bajillion to get it fixed after like year 2, because it wasn't structurally sound. Good job, guys. It's not a feature. It's a problem. It's a bug. Fix it. Sorry. That's it. It drives me insane. It drives me insane.
Does it? I mean,
oh my God, I hate it. When they're like, come to the bounce house. It's not supposed to bounce. That's bad engineering. You guys suck. Sorry.
I kind of like the Cougs' chances better here coming off a humbling loss than I would have if we were 8-1, had a smaller number than the one we had last week next to our names. Yep. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. I'm not really in that, as bad as last week was, in that different of a spot than I was in the preseason about this game. Again, this opponent has never lost this game. It feels like we've never beaten a UCF team with a pulse on the road. I know we beat them in the Peach Bowl season when they were winless. I think the Cougs can win this, but I will believe we do it at the moment I see it. That's not me being negative. That's not me saying they can't. That's just been where my head's at on this game since basically the moment we found out that the UCF game was going to be the 2025 space game. We'll be rooting like hell for a Cougar win every second of this football game, like I always do. I'll believe it at the exact moment I see it. And again, that's not me being negative about the football program at large. It's just how I felt about this game for going on 4 or 5 months whenever UCF officially announced it was the space game.
Yeah, I put a little bit into the space game thing. And that they've never lost. I don't know if players play harder because it's a space game. Maybe the crowd's a little bit crazier, but I think for me, it's just very much a look in the mirror. Good defense. Offense could be a little bit better. I think we have the better offense. They have the slightly better defense. Like I said, I think this 1.5 point spread is probably about where it should be. If you see one of these teams at 5 or 6, you're kind of going, what does Vegas know that we don't? But I definitely don't think that's the situation now.
Agreed. Yeah, it's not even like the why of UCF being undefeated in this game. I think it's more, if it was like, oh, they've had 3 of these games and won all 3 of them. At that point, you're like, okay, but like sample of 3, like you have a lot of volatility. But 8 years and like encompassing very good UCF teams and very bad UCF teams that they're still. I mean, I remember when Oklahoma State, and I know that thing cratered pretty quickly, but like 2023, they were cooking. Like they were a good team. That was when Ollie Gordon was, having a Heisman type season, and UCF, like they just went to Orlando, and a UCF team that went 6-6 just beat the stuffing out of them.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen necessarily, but that's kind of the use the words the kids use these days, the aura around this game. It's not
Yeah.
the why, but the what over almost a decade worth of games. It's staring you in the face.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before we leave the topic of football entirely, Bobby, talk about our picks. It finally happened the week that I fear would happen. I have fallen into second place between the two of us. I went 0-3 last week. You went 2-1. Quick summary of our picks. You successfully took West Virginia over half a passing touchdown, our team prop section, and you took the game over of 49.5 points. You only missed on the Big 12 pick of Cincy plus 9.5. I badly missed on U of H minus 13.5 and West Virginia under 1.5 rushing touchdowns and the under on Cincy, Utah 49.5, which insult to injury was buried on a garbage time rushing touchdown by Utah's backup quarterback, Bird something or other. Yeah, his first name was Bird, which now gives you a 240 to 230 point lead on the season going into the final month of the regular season, neck and neck. Bobby, give me your picks for this week.
All right, so I'm going to take the total on this game. I'm going to go over 47.5. Despite both these teams having solid defenses, it does feel like that there's a chance one team is behind for a good amount of this game and starts kind of throwing the ball, and we get into a mini shootout here. I also think both teams could get some stops, lead to short fields. It just, I don't know why, but it just kind of feels like that is that could be a thing where it's 24-24, 27-24, 30-24, something like that, and you sneak over. I don't think we're gonna see 90 points or something like this game, but yeah, I just kind of am feeling that. In terms of the team props, I'm gonna basically take you up on the one passing touchdown. I'm gonna go over half a UCF passing touchdown here, so I will take the over on that. I think it's a good number. I think it'll probably be one if there's any. It will
Yeah,
be.
I believe Jackson has 5 in 7 games played, so that was kind of why I
Yeah,
did that
so
number.
I don't think it's going to. I don't think he's going to throw for 4 or anything like that, but I definitely think one's an option here. And then this week's kind of Big 12 slate's a little flat to me, except for the big game. And I'm going to take BYU plus 10.5 in Lubbock versus the Texas Tech Red Raiders.
I thought about that one. I thought about the game total as well, though I didn't take either for mine. I will note before I say my first pick that my worst category this season of the 3 types of picks we make has been the game spread, the game points total pick. That's always the one that Bobby and I say first for our respective picks. And this is an important disclaimer. So in the spirit of trying to use my current cool streak to the benefit of the Cougs, I'm taking UCF minus 1.5 on Friday. I'm making a noble sacrifice to my season performance here in the most valuable points game to try and use my bad mojo to the Cougs' benefit and get the Cougs to win here. But I'm taking UCF minus 1.5. You can call me a bad Coug, but I'm telling you, Bobby, I'm telling you, I am trying to use the irresistible force that's been me just whiffing on the game spread, game total picks to get the Cougs a road, very slight upset win. So for the second pick in the team props category, I'm taking the Cougs over half a rushing touchdown. I know the performance against West Virginia was not good. Call me crazy, totally vibes here. I think the team has at least a decent rushing performance in them, and I think we could at least pencil in 1 touchdown each to Connor Wigman and Dean Connors on the ground Friday night in Orlando. For my third and final pick from the Big 12 football slate, I had to think about this one a while, kind of like you. I thought about the BYU Tech game that I believe it's game day, right? That's going to be at not Big Noon.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, game day is going to be in Lubbock for that one. Did not take that one, though. I am taking instead TCU minus 6.5 points at home against Iowa State. Iowa State's coming off a home loss to a Sam Levitt-less Arizona State. They've been really struggling, especially on defense in the back half of the season. I think injuries have played a big part in that. TCU hasn't been a perfect, consistent team this year, but at home, I like them to win this one by at least a touchdown. So I'm going TCU minus 6.5 with my final Big 12 pick here.
I love it.
Of course, we got to talk some Cougar men's hoops. Kelvin Sampson got his 800th win on Monday night. And after 7 months long time of waiting, Bobby. We finally got to see what this preseason number 2, very long awaited 25-26 version of Houston Cougar men's basketball looks like. In the flesh, we'll say probably not for the last time. You can only learn so much when you're facing an opponent like Lehigh, but this was still our first real Cougar men's basketball game that counts in the win or loss total. So plenty to chew on from this game, Bobby. What were your biggest takeaways from Monday night's 75-57 win over the Lehigh Mountain Hawks?
There was an interview, like one of those during timeout interview kind of deals that they did with Kelvin Sampson, and I think he said it really, really well. He expected everything that happened in the game. A lot of freshmen who were playing games in front of a big crowd like that for the first time, a really energetic crowd, first game in D1 in college basketball. You saw a couple of the freshmen do some things that freshmen are going to do, especially ones that are playing in their first game. You saw, it may have been Sinek. I can't remember who it was, but he gets a steal and he goes down the court and he kind of makes a play where in high school, your teammate and stuff, you're probably fast enough to make this play, but in college, you telegraph it a little bit, and it leads to a turnover back the other way. It felt like there were a couple of those moments throughout the game. That was kind of my biggest takeaway was watching the freshmen, see how they did, and like I said, they were kind of freshmen, but they weren't bad, right? I mean, Sinek puts up 12 and 12 and 10 has a double-double. That'll work, right? And then you just kind of look, you just go down the score sheet and you just see the freshmen were absolutely contributing the entire game. But there were just those little things that you need to clean up that you kind of expect in that first game and that of the season. You kind of expect it, especially when you have this many freshmen. So what'd you see, bud?
It might sound crazy. I think deep down, maybe even down to the subconscious level, for an early November season opening kind of game like this one, I think Kelvin Sampson would prefer one like this than a 40 to 45 point margin final win where all of us are coming on here overreacting to all the good things. I think he would rather have something like this where you won, it was never in doubt, but lots of things they can go back to his team and say, hey, in maybe not even that much nicer words, you guys ain't shit yet. Like, you guys have a lot of work to be a championship. I think that's where he doesn't want to be. He always says this. You don't want to be a championship team in early November. Like, no championships are going to be awarded for your early November performance. And it didn't look like a championship team, but it doesn't have to at this point. I think I saw John Rothstein say in the immediate aftermath of this game that this year's Cougar team is going to have some growing pains in November, December. And after watching this game, I believe I agree. Wasn't Miles Uzan's best game or close to it. Like the box score will also say correctly, JoJo Tugler had 5 turnovers in this one, but one of those was a 2-on-1 fast break where Uzan, who had a chance himself to take the ball to the basket, instead dished it off to Tugler in kind of an awkward spot, and that just ended up turning from a 2-on-1 to a turnover. There was a stretch around that time in the first half. I think I texted you this, that Uzan was on a streak of like 4 possessions where it felt like he made the wrong decisive pass at the point. But this is also the first game of the season with a number of guys who are either like new faces to the program or just new faces to college basketball in general. And I think your other starting guard who's returning, Emmanuel Sharp, maybe a little slow getting started in this one, didn't shoot it amazingly, but to my eye, I thought really used his defense to get his offensive game going. And you could see by around, I would say somewhere around the under 8 to under 4, somewhere in that stretch of the game, you saw him kind of get his mojo back offensively. And
yeah.
The thing that I'm going to hope from this game is really indicative of something Emmanuel Sharp has added to this game is how good he was getting to the free throw line, because he's always been like good at shooting them. Like, he's always been a pretty good, like, I think like the worst he was in his career was like high 70s, like his first season. He's been pretty comfortably in the 80s since then. So him making the free throws has never really been the issue, but him actually being good at getting to the foul line, I think if he can add that consistently to his game against the better opponents, that could be like something really, a really exciting and positive development for this team. We'll add also JoJo Tugler looked like a guy who'd missed some time this offseason. Didn't look like he was 100% back in basketball shape, which again, it's fine. You're not really like, this isn't the part of the year. Even when we play some better teams later this month, there'll be the games that decide the championship. So I think we're going to be having to watch that there, but also some good stuff. Like, he made a 3 in this one. Like, he threw a no-look pass that is one of the prettiest passes I've seen any Cougar player throw, period, much less a Cougar big man like Tugler.
Dude, I sent you a text
did.
after he made that pass. I said, if JoJo Tugler passes like this, the Big 12 is in a lot of trouble, boys.
Fully agree. And all three of the true freshmen who saw action in this one did stand out things for me. Obviously, Chris Sinak Jr. is going to get the most attention. He had 7 of the Cougs' first 10 points. Hit a pair of early 3-pointers that looked smooth, buddy. Like those didn't look like a big man shooting like 3-point. Like it was a big man shooting 3-pointers, to be clear, but that was a smooth shooting stroke. A shooting stroke that you're not used to seeing a 6'11 freshman break out.
Yeah, it was. He did. You're right. He did a lot. My only concern heading in, or coming out of the game with Sinek was the personal fouls. He had 4 fouls. But it's a Cougar big man. You kind of expect it.
Yeah, I mean 4 fouls. It wasn't like he was limited to like 15 minutes in this game. I want to say I don't have the box score in front of me. I didn't write this one down, but he played more minutes than Tugler. I remember that for sure because I was looking at all the starters' minutes, and I want to say he played more than Fleming's as well because he got into some early foul trouble on this one. You're going to kind of expect that with a freshman big man. You're going to kind of expect with a Cougar big man the way this team, the physical brand of defense they play, and was less involved in the offense later, I think, as a result of that. But he showed enough in this one to make you understand why Chris Sinak came into college with the pedigree that he had. Didn't see as much from Kingston Flemings. He scored the first points of the game, but missed most of the first half with foul trouble. He picked up 2 pretty quickly. I want to say within the first 7-8 minutes of the game. Saw him a lot more in the second half. I'm still not entirely convinced he'll be a starter come Big 12 play, but also Kelvin Sampson's not a guy who puts freshmen in the lineup. I think I guess he's not a guy who's going to skew to doing that. So if Kingston Flemings is one of the 5 guys starting, you got to think that what he's seeing from Kingston Flemings on a practice in, practice out basis has to be really impressive. And I think he'll get his chance to stay in the lineup here for a bit. Hopefully we get to see a little bit more from him in the games to come. Isaiah Harwell's line isn't going to jump off the page. He hit 1 3. That was the sum total of his offensive output. I believe he might've gotten a free throw. I could be wrong, but really not much there, but I really, really, really like what you saw from him outside of scoring the ball. Looks like an instinctual player. He got a steal and immediately had the presence of mind to throw it off a Lehigh defender to avoid the travel and keep the ball with the Cougars. Had 4 steals, which watching him, I don't think that was a fluke. I don't think that was him being right place, right time. He looks like a guy, because we knew coming in, he was rehabbing a pretty serious knee injury. Didn't look like he's 100% in game shape, but I really love the flashes I saw from Isaiah in this one.
Yeah, me too. Like you said, coming off that injury, you want to make sure that one, you're taking it easy, but also you could see where he's going to be a really good basketball player. Not that he's not already a really good basketball player, right? But you can see he's going to be a contributor, and this is a classic example of take it easy in November and make sure you're 100% come March.
Yeah, you're not seeing as much out of the gates from Flemings and Harwell, but they're in this lineup for a reason. And again,
exactly,
not to just beat this any more to death than I already have, but it's about how these guys look in February and March and hopefully early April than right now. And you learn from these reps, even against an opponent who Cougars never really were in any doubt of losing to and should have never really been a doubt of losing to. Like, this is still a completely new experience to these guys. Like, a Division I game, even against a not good Division I team, is still an entirely different kettle of fish than even playing like elite high school basketball like all these guys did.
Yep.
In a lot of ways, like, this game felt like an exhibition. I think you saw more guys and more on-court lineup experimentation than you'll see, even I think in most of the rest of non-conferences here. And I'll just reiterate what I said at the top. I believe Sampson prefers the kind of result we saw on Monday night, a win, but a win that won't get this team too big-headed, won't get this fan base too big-headed with some tougher opponents coming here later in the month, and even on a slightly smaller scale, a tougher opponent coming on Saturday to the Fertitta Center.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real quick, I meant to actually do this earlier, but shout out Chase McCarty getting his first on-court action, the redshirt freshman. Only played 11 minutes, but I loved what I saw from him. He's one of those guys who the ball just seems to find on defense, rebounding, and he had your first 2 free throw makes of the season as well.
Yeah.
Any other Lehigh game thoughts?
No, sir.
Quick thoughts on Saturday's opponent, the Towson Tigers. Still heavy on preseason projections. We only have one game to chew on from their season. They did beat local opponent Loyola in Baltimore 67-56 on Monday opening night. Neither team in that one shot it especially well, though Towson junior Tyler Tejada, who I actually remembered from being a promising freshman on the Towson team that we saw 2 years ago in that multi-team event we played in Charleston, was by far the best player on both teams in that opener, had 24 points on 7-11 from the field. This Towson team was the preseason pick to win their conference, the Colonial Athletic Association, with 7 of the first place votes ahead of UNC Wilmington, who was actually the NCAA tournament rep for the league last season. Towson won the regular season, but mid-major perils lost in their conference tournament. They have another preseason first-team all-conference guy, Dylan Williamson, who's back. Not the scariest team we're going to see in non-conference, but we'll just say scarier than I would have thought a week or so ago when I didn't really have a whole lot of awareness other than just knowing we were playing a Saturday game. Like you usually see the mid-majors have 2 first-team or 2 all-conference caliber guys, and then one of those guys is, I don't know, playing for Penn State, and one of them is playing for like Virginia Commonwealth. That they held on to those guys from a really good mid-major team. Again, probably not top 3 or 4 non-conference opponents that you're going to see this season, but probably one of the better Fertitta Center non-conference home games.
It doesn't have that appeal that based off name or something like that, but definitely a team that can do a little bit of an upset here. I don't think it's going to happen, obviously, but you're facing the number 134 Ken Palm team. You're much better defensively. You're much better offensively than them. You should still come away with a win here. But if you're expecting a 45-point win by the Cougs, this might not be the game where you get it.
Don't mind that we're coming off I'm not gonna say bad effort in the opener, but an effort that I think that Kelvin Sampson will be finding some faults and finding some areas to improve upon in the opener.
Exactly.
So we'll get now to the first team that has ended its season in the Houston Cougar Athletic Department, as your Houston Cougar soccer program, who going into last week were still in contention for the final Big 12 tournament qualifying spot, were unfortunately not able to pull off a titanic road result against the national top 10 TCU team last Thursday in Fort Worth, ultimately losing that one 2-0. I mean, quick summary of that one. TCU dominated shots and possession, though I think considering their volume of shots, Cougs did a good job not giving them a disproportionately high number of really quality chances. But I think in the simplest terms, TCU looked like a national top 10 program that's been at the top of the Big 12 for a while now, well before this season. And U of H looked like a plucky lower mid-table of the Big 12 team with a first-year head coach. We'll give a shout out to your super senior keeper, Lexi Gonzalez, in her final Cougar game, her final collegiate game, managed to reach 200 career college saves, saved a TCU penalty kick. I can't remember if that was number 200. It would have been cool if that one was her 200th, but reached 200 college saves in this one. So a nice one to go out on for Gonzalez, who is a valuable player for the Cougs this season. Bobby, any thoughts from the TCU game?
I'm assuming we're going to do a kind of, we're proud of this team, but there were moments in this game where you still had a chance to, if you are able to get a tie, you're going to be able to possibly advance in the tournament. I don't know if that's what ended up happening, if a draw there would have helped you, but you saw a lot of scrappiness here. You saw a team that knew what they needed to do to make it to the tournament, and just fell a little bit short. Disappointing for sure, but I think this soccer team did better than we could have expected heading into the season at all.
Yeah, nothing negative to say about the Cougs' effort in this one, because going into season, this one or Tech were by a wide margin. The ones I looked at, I was just like, yeah, even if this team is better than we expect, I don't think we're getting anything on the road against 2 top 10 opponents that have been pretty consistently at the top of this league in women's soccer. I'm almost still in disbelief that you got any points from TCU/Tech, and you're not, like, you were 10 minutes away from getting all 3 at Texas Tech, something that I don't think anyone else has really come that close to doing this season. Really, the only things from the season that feel like missed opportunities, and I'm going to use that term loosely, are some of the ties in conference play where maybe picking up the full 3 points, or maybe like one of the West Virginia loss where maybe you see out the 1 point in the road. You just kind of add those up and you think, man, if you had 4 or 5 points, you would have gone into this finale with, obviously TCU being a tough opponent, but not really having anything to play for because you've clinched up being in the conference tournament and just unfortunately just dropped some results. And you were in a better place than you or I would have expected in the preseason, but unfortunately had kind of an uphill climb to get there and just couldn't get the Titanic result.
Yeah, really, really disappointing. Not in their performance season-wide. Like I said, you would have loved to have gotten a result there, but it would have been probably the best win in Cougar soccer history, or at least up there if you were able to pull that upset off.
Quick end of season thoughts from me. Really cool to see today, by the way, Samira Minor, your freshman attacker, was named both freshman all-conference team and second team all-conference when the Big 12 put out their soccer awards today. She's going to be a really good college player. Hope we can keep her around here. Not a huge graduating class by volume, but you're going to miss players like Alex Whitcraft, who's been a mainstay in defense for 4 seasons, Lexi Gonzalez, who came in this season and was your first choice goalie, along with Morgan Donahue, Jaden Humber, Cameron Maddox, and probably others that I'm missing from this one. You do have a lot of exciting projected returners. You have Minor, who I just mentioned, also Jocelyn Chinea, Delia Gonda, Blake Hodgson, Amaris Bumba, Amanda Adams, and numerous others. You're going to need to figure some stuff out, I think, in terms of how to replace some of the very good players I mentioned. I mean, this was one of the best defensive units in the history of Cougar soccer, and Alex Whitcraft and Lexi Gonzalez were a big part of that. So you don't want to just be like, oh yeah, we'll find someone as good as them, because those were both very good players and also good culture players as well. I think players who helped get the strong buy-in that you got from this mix of returning and new players. And I think, just to state the obvious, got to get a bit more attacking quality going forward from both your returners and any newcomers you're bringing in, whether those are players from the portal or players from the high school ranks. But I mean, bottom line, incredible, way above expectations first year from Ben Williams, from this coaching staff, from the squad. If U of H can keep Williams around and allow him to keep building, this is going to be a fun program to watch in the fall, like it was this recently completed season, which is fun. Like we want there to be as many exciting sports in as many seasons as possible. And Cougar soccer gave us by far the most exciting season since you joined the show, even in a part-time capacity. And yeah, the most exciting season in 4 seasons. We got a little taste of how fun Cougar soccer seasons could be under Diego Bocanegra. And then a few pretty poor seasons since then. We're starting to see that again here, which I think is really, really exciting, and can't wait for next fall.
Yeah, it's been rare in my time as a Cougar fan, even going back the 18 years, where the soccer team has been even remotely exciting. And it's always worth it to check their scores, but it hasn't always been the most fun thing to do to see how the soccer team's doing. But it is exciting. I feel more hopeful for this program than I have any other Cougar soccer season going forward. At the end of one of the seasons, just going forward, it just feels like we're in for a treat, as long as everything stays the course that we're hoping it takes on right now.
No doubt. So we've kept it to the end here, not because it's the least important topic, but because as we have recorded this tonight, Cougar women's basketball is competing in their season opener at the Fertitta Center against the UT Arlington Lady Mavericks. Happy to report here. We've timed this up so that we basically know the final score here, and that U of H, that's not us like sitting here clutching our hands because U of H has like a 1-point lead. The Cougars are, as we sit here with just over 30 seconds left, up 19 points. And while Bobby and I's number one focus has been recording this here podcast, it's been an impressive effort. Like it has not, I think, if anything, you know what excites me, Bobby, is that this is going to be a double-digit Cougar win of some kind. It's currently 76-59. But it's one, like you've turned the ball over twice in a row here. Like this is not a clean, like you are still winning this game by a bigger margin than you've beaten UT Arlington in ages. I would say maybe even pre-Huey. And this team is not at all like playing its best basketball. That's why I think in the most general sense is the most exciting. Bobby, what What have you gotten from watching this one? A 76-59 final, by the way.
Yep, just went final.
Go for it.
But
Sorry.
no, you could just see the difference. Sam, because I didn't look it up because I didn't necessarily expect this, but like I can't imagine too many games over the last couple of years where we probably scored 79 points. Like that's not to say that it didn't happen because I think we may have scored 80 versus Mississippi Valley State because I kind of had it pulled up there. I think we scored like 80 versus them. I mean, last year, this UT Arlington team, you scored 57 and lost by 4. I don't know the quality of UTA this year, but that does tell me at least a little bit, right? Maybe UTA was a good team last year who just missed the turn. They were not, right?
I mean, they were all right, but UTA actually genuinely, like I would say, around 2019 or so, because Tech hired their coach.
Yeah,
they had some legit good teams, and like they weren't that great, and they still beat us year in year out. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just talking last year. They beat us by 4. They weren't very good. And this year you beat them by 17. Again, I don't know if it is like maybe this team is significantly worse. They lost all their best players and they're a ragtag group of players over at UT Arlington. But I don't know, man. It gives you at least a little bit of hope here.
This team is at the point. I hope and I believe we'll get to the point where we take these kind of games for granted. Like, yeah, of course we beat them, but we need to get better in X, Y, and Z. This season, first year Matthew Mitchell, I am enjoying every win that the Cougars aren't sweating out in the final minute. I'm enjoying every win, period. Like if this had been
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, if this had been a 4-point win tonight, maybe I'd be slightly less excited about it, but I wouldn't be mad about it. Like this is a game where any margin of victory where you didn't have players getting hurt or anything like that would have been reason to be excited about.
Yeah, one of the things heading into it, you and I had kind of discussed when we were looking at coaches and stuff, we were like, this might be a true year zero situation. Like year zeros are hard to find, right? Just because, especially with the portal now, you can get players in and out fairly quick. You can do a lot. Just this one game, I feel like we're way ahead of schedule. It feels like this may be a year 1, not a year 0 for Coach Mitchell here.
In kind of a backwards way, I'm going to talk about this team didn't do well, just to emphasize that you still found a way to win by 17 and lead almost the entirety of and never really be in doubt for much of the second half. I think like mid third quarter, because I was popping over there and like looking while I wasn't talking. I think they cut it to like 4 or 5, but Cougs led this one nearly all the fourth quarter and latter stages of the third quarter by double digits. I don't think we trailed in this one after the first quarter or the very early second quarter. And you shot horribly from deep. 1 for 14 on 3-pointers, 23 turnovers, which is a slightly less insane number in the women's game, but it's still high.
Yeah.
You did all that. Still won comfortably. And like, it also helps. Like, 23 turnovers. You also forced 35.
Yeah.
Like
which was the idea of the last coach, but he didn't execute it.
Or certainly not in the last 4 or 5 seasons he was here.
Yeah.
Like you could argue around like 2017 to 19-ish. The Cougars did that style with, I think, some success.
Yeah.
But you did that well here. I think what I'm most excited about, what I'm hoping is a real legit takeaway. And I know like UTA is not going to challenge you in the same way that all or nearly all the teams in the Big 12 do. But this team got to the free throw line a bunch tonight.
Yes.
Which was just not something that you ever saw under Huey, the team really do well previously. Like you weren't really like you weren't awful at it, but you weren't ever really like consistently that good at it. You weren't as good as your opponents generally as getting to the line, and you certainly weren't ever better at making them. And the Cougars weren't perfect, but like in the women's game, 69.2% of the team is like solid. If you gave me that as like our season average, I wouldn't be over the moon about it. But if we're getting to the line a bunch, like I feel pretty good about it because in this one you were doing math here. You were +7 at the free throw line. Like I think that allowed this to go from like pretty good margin to comfortably never losing this game kind of margin. This one.
Yeah, absolutely agree there.
Shout out to Individuals. Brianna Piguero, the transfer from Troy coming back home to Houston, had 14 points for the Cougs, but 6 steals, team high on that one. Was also 8 of 10 from the charity stripe. Didn't shoot it insanely well. Did have 7 turnovers. So there's some first game stuff there for her as your ball handler, but you feel pretty good about that. TK Pitts, one of your other like veteran expected guards coming in from SMU. She had 4 steals and was pretty efficient offensively. 12 points on 5 of 7 from the field. Shout out to a couple freshmen too. I don't think either of us expected to have multiple freshmen playing at key junctions this game, but Kayla King, local, say a tech spark from San Antonio, started. She had 11 points, and Jay Jones was, I believe at the halftime, was tied with Amir Abdur-Rahim, who was your leading scorer, who I'll shout out here in a second, with the most points scored by any Cougar. She had 13 on 5 and 9 from the field. Also led the Cougs with 5 of the 10 total offensive rebounds as well. Product of South Florida, who came in as well. We expected this to be mostly fresh. Not mostly fresh. We expected this to be mostly transfers contributing. So it was nice to see a couple of your freshmen giving you an immediate impact at key points in this game. Also, mentioned Pagero a bit ago, but plus 33 in the plus minus. It was not a perfect stat because you have 4 other players kind of also dictating that, but not a coincidence that I think that your best basketball is played tonight with her on the floor. Also, shout out to your 6th or 7th year, I think 6th at least, in the college game, Amir Abdur-Rahim. I think she did really, really well in this one. That's been, I think, one of the big pain points. If you want to talk about the last several years of Cougar women's basketball, you've had some good guards, but I think the post player contributions since the COVID season had really fallen off a cliff for Huey and the previous staff. It would be, I'm not expecting 16 and 3 from her night in, night out, but if she can just give you periodic contributions against the better opponents, like I think this is going to be a good team. Like you saw a team that clearly has stuff to work on, clearly isn't its best version, and you beat UTA by 17 points, and it never really looked in doubt for most of the second half, which I think is reason to be excited about this program in year 1 under Matthew Mitchell.
Yeah, you kind of had that spurt at the end of the first half where the defense really locked in and you really extended the lead there, and then you just kind of held on in the second half.
Never trailed again.
Never trailed from there on. It was a very good performance by this Lady Cougar basketball team, one that should get everyone excited. Like you said, the points went around pretty evenly today. All your starters but Kiera Merchant scored in double digits. You had Jay Jones also in double digits. Just a really exciting result there for the Cougs.
Yeah, only other thing, curious what this rotation looks like. Maybe against the better opponents. Like maybe I don't know if we will. You're not going like, especially after last year when you had like 6-7 players, like you're going to use the depth. You're going to go more than 6-7 in the rotation. But I'm curious what this rotation looks like as you get further into the season as well.
Absolutely.
So that's the Cougar Sports Night, Bob. We got this one just under 2 hours. Take us home, buddy.
All right, well, that is it for this episode of the Scott Holman podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm going to do a new request here that I've not done before. We have a goal that we have for listeners and downloads in a month, and it would be very helpful to us if you would, not for like advertising reasons, it's more just like a personal goal for us. Like, it's not like somebody offered us a lot of money if we can get X amount of downloads in a month. It's not that at all.
If someone wants to do that.
Yes, but if someone wants to pay, but we kind of want to hit this number. So I'm going to ask you to tell a friend. Give us 5 stars wherever you listen to podcasts, and then just recommend the show to a Cougar fan that you know that doesn't listen. A lot of you work with Cougar fans. We'd really appreciate it. So just want to throw that out there as a new one. As always, you can reach us at our normal spots. You can find us on any social media at SH Podcast. That's Twitter. You can find us there. You can also find us on Blue Sky at podcast, PAWDCAST. .bsky.social. You can find us there. You can email us shpodcast, PAWDCAST @gmail.com. And if you want to be the person who gives us a lot of money for hitting X amount of downloads, we will. You can find us on patreon.com/shpodcast. Sam, I think I covered everything. What do we always say, bud?
Go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs! Let's go!